Hello again, it's me, Sue.Clark.Wittenberg from Ottawa, Canada. I'm having a great night here doing my life story. Now, what I'll tell you is some of the graphic stuff that I forgot. This is very disturbing. When we lived in the Paul Anka house, the whole family, Mom, Dad, Chris, and me, Clearview Avenue, it was 87 Clearview Avenue, from 67 to 71. Something happened. My mother one day called my brother at the Champlain High School. I was there. She called the vice principal and said, I need Chris Laguerre to come home. And so he went home. I wasn't there. And he told me a few years later what happened. He had a cage of mice in his room. He loved animals, eh? I guess he left the cage open, and some of the mice went all over his room while she had to clean up his bedroom. So my brother came home. She took him in the basement, and there was a bucket of water and the cage. She put most of the mice in the cage. This is horrible, okay? Now, this is graphic, so I'm just going to warn you right now, okay? My mother is very demented. She said, Chris, you left your cage open and all the mice were all over the room. I hate the mice. So she sat him down in a chair while she stood up. She took a mouse by the tail and said, I'm going to drown these mice now to teach you a lesson. And she took the mice by the tail and threw them in the bucket, and she made sure they were under, and they drowned. He was horrified. He never told me about this until a few years later. When I told Dr. Pesher at the Montfort Hospital on the psych ward, Marina Pesher, her skin turned white and her hair rose. And I found out later, she says, I'm going to give you a pension right now, a pension. And this is very hard for me to talk about. It's very disturbing. I didn't see that, but my brother experienced that. He never had therapy. He has bad nerves. I tend to overreact in life, and so does he. I mistrust men, and of course, I think you know why. I've been raped, gang raped, beaten by my father would kick me, my uncle molested me, men would rape me, my first husband would rape me, so I don't trust men. I'm more of a recluse now because of my job. I'm disabled and I can't walk anymore, so I tend to be in the house and I only go out with my husband. I'm a recluse and I tend to be that way. I started that last year when I broke my shoulders. I don't feel safe out there alone. I am a public figure. I did a lot of work in the anti-poverty. I've been in the press a lot with anti-poverty and psychiatric protests. And I've been lashed out in public. Someone called me, there's that welfare girl, when I was at a pharmacy. And somebody said, I saw you on TV on Parliament Hill about the Mother's Day electroshock protest. People in my area have some respect for me. They say hi. I don't talk to people. I say hello. I'm polite. People in my building here where I live are not too kind. They have problems. I'm not judging them. So in my apartment, I tend to be a recluse, and I like being a recluse. Yes, I can socialize, and I can meet people, and I do visit friends, but my life is as a recluse doing just this job 10 hours a day, anti-psychiatry. I love it. It keeps me going. Anyhow, I've known a lot of people who are suicidal. I was years ago, and now I don't get depressed anymore because my work takes a lot of time, and I try to do my best every day. Yes, I've made some major mistakes in my life. I'm not perfect, but I have a lot of respect for my peers. When we meet on the street, there is a common solidarity between us. They may not like me, or I may not like them, but there's always a respect between us. And I had trouble starting out as an advocate against psychiatry. I was at the Royal Ottawa Hospital, and a social worker said, sit down, Sue Clark, you're wearing two hats, psychiatric patient and advocate. I said, I'm not a psychiatric patient no more, and I will speak up. I went to the Friends of Schizophrenics, and I said, I'm Sue Clark, there's no such thing as schizophrenia, and they told me, shut up, sit down, Sue Clark. I've been attacked a lot when I go to psychiatric hospitals. Though I told you in my last video, I was hired by the Royal Ottawa Hospital to speak out. I went to a restaurant one time with my friend Marion, who hired me at that, it's called the Consumers as Experts program. I went to a restaurant on Bank Street with Marion. I was talking to psychiatric students, doctors who became a doctor and want to specialize in psychiatry, and during their meal some of their jaws dropped when I told them my story. It was very eye-opening for these doctors that were going to specialize in psychiatry. I had a lot to say for 2 hours and they applauded. I got an award in 2008 from the Coalition Against Psychiatric Abuse in Toronto, Don Weitz and Dr. Bonnie Burstow. She gave me my award for a lifetime. It's anti-psychiatry activism. This is my life. I don't want to do anything else. I do anti-psychiatry. I have a Facebook page called facebook.com/Sue, S-U-E, Clark, C-L-A-R-K, Wittenberg, W-I-T-T-E-N-B-E-R-G. My page is mostly about mental health issues, mostly against psychiatric oppression and psychiatric abuse and torture. Why do I want to do this? Well, I lived 18 years with torture by psychiatry. I have a good reason to speak out. I don't get paid for my job, I never did. And I don't want to get paid. Who's going to hire someone like me with a big mouth? I mean, I speak out all the time. I'm very assertive now. I wasn't always assertive like this, but through my business, as I call it, my work, I've had to stand up to a lot of people, either online, on the phone, in public, or on my Facebook, where some have attacked, not much. I block them. When they get nasty, I will block their posts, and then I will block them out of my page. I make sure my page is clean language, respectful, and the truth. I know that millions of people are incarcerated and being tortured right now as we speak in psychiatric hospitals with electroshock, forced drugging, forced electroshock, and being forced with these labels on their head. Label jars, not people, and I say, don't label me. I've been labeled a lot, and I have no label now. There are many people like me fighting against psychiatric oppression. Dr. Lauren Tenney, she got her PhD today in New York City. She has 3 masters, a BA, and a PhD today. She's a radio show, Blog Talk Radio / Talk with Tenney, T-E-N-N-E-Y. I'll put the little blurb right on this video. There's Dr. John Breeden from Texas. He has a group fighting electroshock. Don Weitz and Bonnie in Toronto that gave me my award, CAPA, Coalition Against Psychiatric Abuse. There's mindfreedom.org, mindfreedom.org. David Oakes was the head of it. 2 years ago he fell and broke his neck, but it's a huge website. He may be disabled now, but he still speaks out. He's a wonderful person, a very good organizer, and he still gives speeches and he still organizes. He's not leading Mind Freedom right now, but he's a great speaker. He does a lot of work still. Then we have George, his name is Ebert. He's done a lot of work. And a lot of people out there. If you type in Google Dr. Peter R. Breggin, you'll see a lot of his stuff. If you go to youtube.com, type in Dr. John Breeding, B-R-E-D-D-I-N-G videos, or Dr. Peter R. Breggin, Breggin, videos on YouTube. So there's a lot of websites against psychiatry, a lot of activists like us, who are determined to expose how psychiatry is not a true science. It is a medical fraud. The labels are a fraud, and the pills are brain damaging as well as electroshock. There are CTOs in Ontario, forced drugging. It means if you're in the hospital a few times in a few years, you have to agree to take your medications on the outside. Someone will come to your home every day and give you your meds. If not, they'll throw you into the psychiatric ward. There are the isolation rooms. I've never been in one. It's a little room with a window, and they throw you in there. It's like an isolation room in prison. At least in jail, you know how long you're going to be in jail. In a psychiatric ward, you don't know how long you're going to be there. The main press do not pick up our stories against psychiatric oppression. They don't want to tell the real news. You know that. It's the alternate news that will tell the truth. We all know that. It's yellow journalism most times. There are a lot of articles about psychiatric pills that can cause diabetes now, brain damage, etc. Just go on Google. It's a wonderful source. I'll give you some websites as I go along in each video. I'll post them to the video. What I can say now, I'm 59 years old. I'm disabled. I can't walk. I'm crippled with arthritis. But I can talk. Thank God I can still talk. I haven't lost that ability yet. I hope not. Why I do this job every day is because I believe in what I'm saying, because I lived it. I lived my experiences that I told you. It is true. My story is true. Yes, I had a traumatic childhood. My mother had electroshock. After I left Brockville, she was at the Ottawa Pacific. I don't know how many she got, but she was electroshock at the Ottawa Civic Hospital Psych Ward. I thought I'd let you know that, eh? I do not have any association with my immediate family. My mother and father are mentally abusive, and my brother tends to physically abuse me. So for quite a few years now, I am estranged from my immediate family, my brother Chris, my mother and father. That's the way it is. That happens. I associate with a cousin on Facebook, and I have friends who are very solid and good. I've had for many years. But I'm going to tell you something very frightening. You think you will end up in a psychiatric hospital? You don't know. Someone can die right in front of you, and you could have a breakdown right in front of the cops. They could haul you in for 72 hours. It can happen to anyone being hauled into a psych ward. Someone could go to the Justice of the Peace and put you in for 72 hours. Just say, so-and-so's having some stress mental problems. At the courthouse, Justice of the Peace could put you in for 72 hours. Drag you in, you can't say a dang thing. You can't say nothing. They'll drug you up there, put a label on your head, and maybe force you to take meds on the outside. How do you know? How do you know about your relatives that might live in another province and you haven't seen them for a while? And remember that a lot of electroshock is given to the elderly women. Well, how do you know if your Aunt Bertha or Jane or Joan is being forced to have electroshock? You can't keep track of all your family, especially if you have a large family. How do you know? It could happen to you tomorrow. Someone could die. You're in your office. You have a breakdown right there. And someone say, "Oh, John lost his wife. He's out of control. He's out of control." You could be hauled in for 72 hours. Don't kid yourself. Be very careful about this. Now, there's another story here. Very bad in Canada. If you are a psychiatric survivor and have on your file you've been suicidal, the police in Canada now share it with the border guards and the FBI. One lady in Toronto went to the Pearson Airport to go to Miami. She was stopped as soon as she said her name. She had a passport. They called her to her room and said, "You were suicidal in such and such a year, 1989. Your partner called 911 and you went to a psych ward. You can't go into the USA until you get a letter from a doctor saying you're okay now. 19,000 files in Canada have been forwarded to the SA, to the state's border guards. So remember that. Check it out. Go on Google and check it out. It's true. So now our mental health records are being looked at against our privacy, shared with the police and the FBI, the border guards and the FBI. They look right into your files, and the police forces all over Canada are tagging our names if you have been suicidal and you're going to the US. You may not be allowed in. Just to let you know, it's happening now. 19,000 people's files have been looked at and tagged, and when you go to an airport, they can stop you, bring you in a room and said you are suicidal, you're not allowed into the USA. You can't do a thing about it unless you get a doctor's letter saying you're stable and okay now. I think that's outrageous. That's a violation of our privacy. And our Prime Minister is allowing this. We have to complain. If you're a Canadian, please write a letter to the Prime Minister, to your Member of Parliament, your MPP, and complain. This is not okay. I will put the story, I will post it on the front of this video. Please, Canadians, complain, or Americans, complain too. It may happen to you that you won't be able to go out of your country into Canada. Switcheroo. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of bad things happening now. 100,000 Americans get electroshock every year. 1 to 2 million people yearly get electroshock all over the world. Electroshock causes brain damage every time, and the death rate for electroshock is 1 in 200. Well, I went to the university, it's called Carleton University, in 1995. From September till December, I couldn't continue because I could not remember what I was learning. It wasn't because I didn't have the aptitude or intelligence. You can't learn if you can't remember. That's why I'm in poverty. I want to be a doctor or a lawyer. If you can't study because you can't remember, you're not going to get the degrees that you need to have a higher learning and a good career, financial good career. I have a funny little story to tell you. In 1989, a friend of mine died. She took a bunch of pills and died, and I reacted. I went to the Queensway Carleton Hospital psych ward on the main ground. I came in around 10 o'clock at night. I saw the head nurse, and I said, "I'm Sue Clark. I'm an advocate as well, mental health advocate." I said, "My friend committed suicide. I just found out. I'm very depressed. I want a room. I want to be able to do pastels all night. Don't drug me. And if I want to walk around in the living room, let me." So I stayed up all night. I put the light on. I had a few pastels and a little bit of paper. And then we had the next morning group therapy, where you sit around a room. You have a shrink, a psychiatrist there, and a nurse. I said, "Hello, doctor. I'm Sue Clark." He seemed to know the name. He just kind of looked like, "Oh my God, she's here." Anyhow, I think he was named from the papers. I don't know. I said, he said, "I went to a Christmas party a few weeks ago, and I told them I was a psychiatrist, and they laughed." I said, "I'll tell you why I'm here," and I told the whole crowd, about 20 people. I said, "Because psychiatry is a fraud. Dr. Bregan says electroshock damages your brain. He says that a lot of the psychiatric drugs are brain disabling." I went on and on and on. He said, "That's enough now." He told me to leave the group, and he told me to see the head psychiatrist. I went to see the head psychiatrist on the ward. He said, "Suzanne, we want you off this ward now because you are upsetting the patients." I said, "I can't leave now." I said, "I have my coat and my clothes drying in the dryer." He said, "Leave immediately. As soon as your clothes are dried, get out of here." That's an order. I said, "Okay." I don't think that any psychiatric ward wants me at all. I think they know my name. I don't think If ever the police brought me to a psychiatric ward, I think they'd say, get her out of here now. They know my name. If you are in a psychiatric ward, call a lawyer, mental health lawyer if you can. Call a friend and tell them to get you a mental health lawyer to get you out of there. I knew a girl who was raped by a patient. He walked into her room and he raped her. I know of the orderly that raped a patient. He went into her room and raped her. In Brockville Psychiatric Hospital, I met a lady. She was raped in the library. One of the male nurses brought her to the library after hours. He raped her. When she went back to Ward H to tell the staff, they laughed at her. They said, oh, you're crazy. Never called the cops, didn't believe her, didn't validate her. I think this is terrible. You don't have any rights on a psychiatric ward. Oh, they say you do. No, you don't. They would say, oh, you have your rights to call the hospital advocate. They're working for the hospital. Of course they're not going to help you much at all. Think about it for a minute. You're on a ward and you think that the hospital that's paying them is going to help you? I don't think so. They're working for the ones that are torturing you. Another thing too, if you get a referral to a psychiatrist, say no. Dr. Peter Bregan, a psychiatrist in the States who's anti-psychiatry, said, going to see a psychiatrist can be the most dangerous thing a person can do. He's a psychiatrist. He's written a lot of books. Go to breggin.com. He's got books how to get off the psychiatric drugs if you want. Talk him back to Prozac, everything. Go to youtube.com and put in Dr. Peter R. Bregan videos. You'll see a whole list of them. Tons of them. And if you want to know about electroshock, go to ectresources.org. Go to toxicpsychiatry.com. Go to Dr. John Breeding's website, endofshock.com. Go to mindfreedom.org. Go to psychrights.org, run by a lawyer, Jim Gotson. Now, all I can say, I've said enough now for video 4. Video 5 is coming up. Have a good night, and I would say no to psychiatry. Psychiatry harms people. I've told you that already. And Dr. Bregan said, a psychiatrist, going to see a psychiatrist can be the most dangerous thing you can do. He wrote it, not me. Thank you and good night. Bye-bye. I'll see you in video 5. Bye.